How you doing, Ed?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Old Jeff has got problems.
Yeah, I saw the email.
Yeah. Well, he never got back to me until I was gone for a while this afternoon, but I just checked my emails about an hour ago. And, I sent him a couple emails. I told him if he didn't want to do the chats anymore, just let me know. I mean, he contacted me and wanted to help, so I either have to have students or someone help me do that. And, he wanted to get into where he could do more chats with more people. So, half the time Google's not working, and, I got more people trying to get in than can fit in here. 10 people, that's it.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a way you could take over that that kind of chat.
Well, it's kind of complicated. There's one of my students, he's more computer savvy than I am. And so I'm going to talk to him. He's local. He's only about, I live north of Atlanta. He's up towards Atlanta. So he might be more interested in doing it. I got to find somebody who is a beekeeper who's interested in doing this type of stuff. There's a lot of people that want to do it just to do a moderation or something. They want you to pay them for it. And that's what Jeff done is he volunteered to pay for that chat room. And I checked on it today, and I don't know how to set the thing up. And the minimal is $18, I think, a month, or to set it up. I don't know. It's just too complicated for an old man. I'm not a computer savvy
Yeah.
person. Younger people is more up to date on that stuff. How you doing, Wes? Les?
Good. How you doing, Don?
Oh, pretty good.
Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while.
Well, you get in the other chats, don't you? But you don't do much talking. Is
I
Jeff
know it.
scaring you?
I've been kind of quiet lately. Me and Joe been talking quite a bit.
Have you? Good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, if this thing would work and enough people get in it, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing. It's a free thing. I'm not in it really to make money, but if I'm going to sit here and take basic stuff, Jeff was basically trying to recoup the cost of the chat room. Eventually, I got one of my students, he's more computer savvy, so maybe he might be interested in doing it. I had one guy say, try Uvu. Well, you can do like 20 people in that, and it's a free chat. Um,
I think you ought to make a little money on it. You put a lot of time in.
well, it's just like tonight. I wanted to try to get enough people in here, and I wanted to try to show and explain baby nukes and how to set them up. But there's absolutely nobody out there that wants to take the time and take a person by the hand and show them the way to get in to make money. It's just they're afraid they're going to lose business. So it just
Well, I can tell you
it
what
does
happened.
take time. I mean, like right tonight, I've got dozens of things I could be doing, but I brought one of my baby nukes in. I don't know if you can see it. This is I've done a video on it on YouTube. It shows the dimensions, and then I got the frames here. I don't know if you're going to do it or not, but we do two style lids. This is, you can see it's just got pieces on the ends. This is what they call a migratory lid. It's the cheapest, quickest way.
Yeah.
And here is, hey Joe.
There you go, Don.
Here is those mini frames. When I'm doing a video and trying to get it up onto YouTube, I have to limit the length of the time because I'm on a slower system. A 5-minute video, if I shoot it on my camera and then try to upload it, it's an hour. So the advantage of Google Hangouts is when I'm done, within 5 to 10 minutes, it goes up. But
Yeah.
those, I probably should wait a little bit, but basically this is, I'm putting two frames together, and this is actually one standard frame. This is what a baby nuke is, a standard length frame cut in half, and then you put 4 in a box. Now, I usually run these things as singles, but I've been kicking ideas around, a lot of people working. This thing would work great. These are high maintenance. they either overfill with bees quick, or they get honey bound, or they starve. But I've been kicking around an idea, if a person's got enough scrap wood, you could build another same size box and use it as a super. You've got more cubic inches to the box, which would hold the bees in a little longer. One beauty part of this is, see, this holds 4 frames. And I've got, here's one that was in a box. I don't know if you can see. It's partially drawn out.
Yeah,
there wasn't enough bees really in the box. But you have 4 frames in here. When you pull the queen out of this box, it's all full of frames. That's got 4 frames. They're drawn out. You can take 2 or 3 frames out of this box, leave 1 frame in. Here's one that's a full sheet of wax that will be started up. So you can pull 3 frames out of this box, and at that point, when you're putting a new queen cell, you've just pulled the queen out. You can set up with these 3 frames 3 more boxes and put starter strips with the other frames in those boxes. So when you go back in 4 or 5 days and you pull the queen out of 4 more boxes, and if you've been feeding these, there's a honey flow, you can pull 3 more frames out of each one, and that's going to give you 9 or 12 more. So it keeps growing and growing and growing. Now, the other alternative to this method is you take 2 of these frames, just like this. Now that makes 1 whole standard medium frame. You take a standard super and you put a bar across the middle, which would be, you've got your frame rest on this end, you've got a support bar going across the super right between the frames here, and then you've got your frame rest on the other end. And you put these over the top of a brood chamber, and they draw that out super fast. Now, instead of limping along with this box and then growing 3 boxes, 6 boxes, 9 boxes, this you put on an 8-frame box, and you've got 16 frames. The beauty part of this one is you've got brood in each one. You drop 1 frame in each box, you can set 16 more boxes up. This thing, you'll never build boxes fast enough. But this is basically strictly for mating queens.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's why a lot of these things I can't put a lot of time in on YouTube. They just take so much time to upload. 5 minutes of my camera that I use out in the bee yard takes me an hour to 45 minutes. So if I go into much detail on this, I would be 4 hours uploading. And even the chats that Jeff done, those take me an hour to an hour and a half. He does something, he compresses the files, stuff down like that. That's why I need some younger person, local, that is an interested beekeeper that wants to work hand in hand to help promote this stuff. I mean, I could care less if I make $1 on it. You know, my gratification is people like Jim from Texas, Joe right there, he'll tell you, you know, just using part of my methods, they increase the hives, you don't lose bees, and that works. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make bees.
Well, I can tell you what's happened to, I think, maybe some of us is we started into this thing as a hobby, and all of a sudden we've learned so much, we're taking more interest, and we'd like to expand quite a bit in the spring.
Well, you can expand and get as much of it out of it that you want. I'm probably the only one around that's willing to share from someone right off the street to teach them how to make a living at it. Other beekeepers or commercial people, they're afraid you're going to get their business. And right now, there's so much business out there that if I had 100 people join this chat every single week and they all started selling queens and nukes, they couldn't flood the market. I believe if you produce a good quality product, you don't have to advertise. I mean, I haven't done it since 1970. And I have quite a few students around the country. I send business to them. I got Matt up in Indiana. I've got the Willie up there in Chicago. I've got people all over every state. And, you know, even if I'm selling nukes for them, you know, 100 here, I charge them a percentage. I send the business right to them. They don't have to spend a dime in advertising. So this is something, if you want to grow into a retirement thing, I mean, you got the opportunity here.
That's where I'm at, in retirement.
Michael joined us. If you got questions, Michael, just jump in there. The only thing we have to do is not, if you're watching YouTube at the same time, you're going to have to mute your microphone so we don't get feedback. And we'll try to answer, as many questions we can. The thing I like to deal with is people that have a good basic grip on beekeeping. It's like I'm trying to explain this baby nuke to people. It's like people come here and the first thing they want to do, they want to go back and they want to graft queens. That's like coming here and you want to learn to run a high performance motorcycle and you can't even get on a tricycle yet. You've got to learn the basics and the fundamentals before you can move on. You probably hear me on a lot of my videos telling people over and over, if you follow just 10 to 20% of my methods, cutting cells is the best queens you can make. And by cutting cells, you will never make enough boxes to use all your cells. And once you got good stock, there's no need to buy more bees unless you want to improve your stock and, buying queens from different people to improve stock.
Nobody got any question, Don. I made a whole list up this week, so we
You got a list up, huh? Well, I'm sorry that things with Jeff ain't worked out. He had sent me a private email. Finally, he's got colitis and he's bleeding internally, and then the week before, 2 weeks or a case before, his wife had a bad accident and he couldn't get on. So I thought sometimes I get this Google Hangout to work and sometimes I don't, but those who watched my videos and trying to learn, I'm trying not to let everybody down, and I'm trying to accommodate as much people as I possibly can. I know I've got, when we went to the pay-per-view type thing, we had a lot of people got excited and stuff, but if you was to buy classes, what you're getting tonight, that kind of experience, you couldn't get nothing for less than $50 or $100, and I'm not here to make money. It's just paying for the room and stuff.
Yeah.
William, welcome.
How you doing tonight?
Oh, we're doing good.
Hey, Don, I'll start out the question unless anybody else wants to jump in there. I don't want to hog things up, but it's kind of. Hey, on your honey supers, do you put small cell foundation in your honey supers?
I sell wax mills. I use 4.9. I've been on 4.9 since 1992. So I got into the small cell then. I seen it work so well. I started having mills made, and now I sell the mills. So I basically try to keep 2 to 3 mills here all the time. And I teach you on that mill. Now, that's not saying you can't buy mills from other places. People have been here that has bought wax mills from other people and they can't get them to work. That's the #1 reason that I'm doing a lot of teaching. There's no instructions with anybody out there that's selling mills. I teach you on the mill you're going to buy. You're going to run it proficiently and good, and when you leave here, you're not going to be calling me up in a week, 2 weeks and say, I can't get this thing to work. I want my money back. You're going to make good foundation before you ever leave. Evening, Jimmy. We are going to get a full room, I think, tonight.
Yeah. Hey, next 10 days here in Indiana is supposed to be pretty nice, 50s and 60s. And I'm going to open feed some honey. What's the best way to feed that open feed on that honey this time of year?
I don't think I would open feed honey. If you got hive top feeders, I would put honey in the feeder. And if you're using the design that I'm using, only fill it up halfway. And then if you're feeding honey, never reduce it with water. Feed it directly, don't cut it. The cutting of it will ferment it, and then your bees will get diarrhea and you'll have brown streaking on your hives. Now, if you don't have honey, you can take on a 5-frame box or even an 8-frame single story, 2 good cupfuls of dry sugar and just drop it in the back of the hive. That's good for a week, 10 days. I mean, it's not the best way, but it's better than this time of the year getting in your hive and trying to kill a queen looking for her, and pulling a frame out. But if you're confident, you can pull a frame out, one frame next to the cluster. Try not to bust the cluster off. And do it at 50 to 55 degrees. Turn the frame. I'll get one of these out of here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. These are mini frames, but you get the idea. Take the frame, turn it sideways like this. You could take and either dribble honey into the cells that are drawn out or drop honey in there. And then drop sugar in there, dry sugar. And then once you put the sugar on in there, just shake the frame a little bit around and take a water bottle and mist it lightly. Turn the frame over, do the same thing to this side. It's another alternative to emergency feeding.
Why wouldn't you open feed this time of year?
Well, it's just like where you're living right now. 6 o'clock in the morning, you want to run out there with your pajamas on and grab a quart of milk about a quarter mile from the road? You're going to freeze. You're going to be cold. And those bees are not going to fly out. The only bees that's going to come out now is the ones doing cleansing flights. So they're not going to leave the hive very much. Now, I looked at some of my hives yesterday and the day before. I don't know where they're getting it, but they're bringing a little bit of pollen in. It might be some dandelion someplace blooming or something that's blooming. But that's the one thing that I'm trying to do now. Say, if you bought a DVD and you bought a book, and that particular question right there, where are you going to find it in a book? And I'm telling the do's and the don'ts on what different things. You bring something up, and I can tell you the do's and the don'ts. So that was, the main thing that Jeff was trying to get across to people. You're going to have people that if it ain't free and you give them something free all the time, that it's no good.
Hey, these big honey guys that go out and pollinate, when do they want their nukes to build them up? They want them in the fall so they can ship them south and build them up?
Pollinators?
Yeah.
You're talking about, or people buying nukes?
Well, I mean, yeah, I assume the pollinators buy their nukes to build them up in the fall, so they'll be ready to go in the spring.
Well, see,
am I thinking wrong?
You're basically in the wrong area. I sell bees. Your larger bee operators, pollinators, or people that's doing honey, or they're starting to lose bees. They're going to buy they come from New York or Pennsylvania. They're going to Florida to overwinter. They'll stop by and they'll buy 10, 20, 25 nukes to boost their losses or to buy new stock. Who's ever just joined us, Patsy, you need to mute your mic if you've got YouTube running because we're getting feedback. So the ones who have joined late, I'm going to show the baby nuke again. This is the way we try to run. Get it up here when you see it. This was actually done on YouTube. I put it up on YouTube, but people can't ask questions. So I thought I'd bring it up, and that way if people want to start making some queens, and let me see if I find. We like to use starter strips. Okay. Now, the baby nuke is set up on a principle of that's one, I'm going to hold it back where you can see. That is one frame, basically a medium frame that's cut in half. And where you see the middle cut out here between my face there, you put a bar across your super, and you can put 16 of these in an 8-frame box. That means you can set 16 up. And then if you're setting up this box here, it's got 4 frames in there. Once you get it going and you pull the first queen out, you pull 3 frames out. That's drawn, and you set 3 additional boxes up. Then you go to starter strips, or you can even go to empty frames. And then I've also discussed tonight, if you can't work these boxes quickly enough, you can build another box, same size, and set it on top so you run double deep. But they're all mediums cut in half. And every bit of that is scrap drops out of the wood shop. You don't need to buy those frames. And let me see if I can find, well, you can see. You see where I've got that waxing? The only extra work I've done is I set this top bar. This is cut in at 1 inch on the top for this frame here. And then I just set the saw blade where it comes basically down the middle of that frame. And what I've done is I've took starter strips and I've set them down in a groove, and you can either take a teaspoon, dip it in some hot wax, and dribble along here, and then once you put it in the hive, the bees will draw it out. I particularly like a turkey baster. I can hold it. Mine is a metal turkey baster. You've probably seen me back in the bee lab, doing queen cells and stuff. I like the metal because I can leave it in the pot and I don't have to worry about it melting. But if anybody's got questions on this, I'll be glad to answer it. I'll try to cover different subjects each night, each time we get on here, so that you can make your own queens, you can make your own splits and stuff. There's no need to be buying stuff.
So, Don, if I'm following you right, these little mini ones are the ones that you pull queen cells out of your 5-frame nukes, and that's where you put them with very few resources to fly out and get mated and come back.
Yes. See, the main advantage of this box, you've got 4 frames in here, and when you start them out of it originally, and remember I said you can put 16 of these in your super over your brood chamber. Feed them. The queen will come up in here and lay into all these frames. So
Okay.
you've got 16 frames. You can set 16 boxes up. So on your initial setup, we use 3 students. On the first go-around, the first student will put the queen cell in between the frame. The next one dumps a cup of bees or 2 cups of bees, and we take a 5-gallon bucket and fill it 1/3 of the way with bees shook out of a hive, a good strong hive, and we use a Melomac plastic cup to dip. That way it's got the thin edges on the side and you don't mash bees. And when we shake the bees, they're usually got syrup and stuff on them, so they're not going to fly out. If you put more than 1/3 of a cup of 1/3 of a 5-gallon bucket of bees, they overheat. 1/3 of a bucket, that usually sets up between 25 and 30 these baby nukes. So then we go back and we recharge our bucket. Everything is basically very simple. The whole secret to making these queens is get your hive to where they're making queen cells, have a sugar supply, or use your honey to make more queens and bees.
Makes sense, Don.
There's ladies that come up here, learn this here. I mean, you don't need to learn to graft. I've showed 5 or 6 different ways to make cells without grafting, and a natural made cell is far better than a grafted cell. But I'm going to do more grafting this next year because the demand is so high. My son's going to work the front yard and taking care of customers, and I've got to do some private classes, teaching grafting back there. If you're not going to make use of 200 to 300 queens, a day, I don't see grafting is the way to do it. You get an inferior queen, as far as I'm concerned.
I got a silly question, Don. I've been looking for live bee stickers for shipping. Where do you get them at? I've looked all over the internet for them.
My wife has got some stickers someplace. I forget where she went and got them. But she went to one of the office supplies. I don't know if it's Office Depot, Office Max. You can buy a stamp pad that has live bees on it. I don't know. She might have one sitting around here somewhere. Let me see if I can see it. Monique, you know where that stamp pad's at? My wife takes care of all that. She's coming around. I'll see if I can find it. The stamp pad is your cheapest way to go about it. And then she buys these fragile stickers to stick on nukes and queen boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, the fragile I can find, but I could never find the thing for live bees.
All right. Now here's what we're using. This one says, I don't know if this reversed on for what you see or not, but this is just a rubber stamp, and we use a red stamp pad, and then here's our, these are our fragile stickers they're like vinyl we put on the stickers, and she has little stickers that she makes on the queen boxes to put out. Let's see what else we got here. And here's another one that we use. Most all this stuff is pretty common to get up at the Office Depot and that. Now, this is the second or third one of these rubber stamps that I've used. When you start stamping wood and you're stamping so fast, some of them they don't make them too good, and up here this rubber writing here will come off sometimes. So, but these stamps they ain't very expensive. It's the cheapest way to go. Now here's another one that you can get all the stamps that you want. Here's one that we use too. I mean, you can see the side here.
Yeah.
Whenever you ship them, the main thing when you're shipping bees, queens, or nukes is have your stamp that says live bees, have your inspection sticker attached to it, and get them insured. Always get them insured because I insure them because some post offices do some strange things. Sometimes you run across a customer that says you got dead bees. If you're going to be in business, you've got to take the customer's word and you replace them. So rather than argue with people, like we use flat rate boxes, and a flat rate box you can get 15, 20 queens in it, and it's a flat rate, and then it goes up in increments as far as insurance to cover the cost, and you get the first $50 free. But if you insure them, no matter what, customer calls me and says, I got 15 queens from you and 3 of them's dead. Rather than argue, we say, go to the post office and make a claim on it. They're insured, so there's no problem there. That's as far as shipping and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Main thing is when you ship a nuke is I like to use 2.5-inch hole on the top, the same as you would for a mason jar. We put 2 holes and put hardware cloth on the top, put a 1-inch hole on the bottom of the nuke, and put hardware cloth on the inside of the box. Never put it on the outside because they put it on a conveyor or something, it catches on something, it rips the screen. You got a postal worker that says, oh, I got stabbed by the screen sticking out. If you put it on the inside, if it bumps against something, you're a lot more safer.
Yeah.
Same with the lid.
I guess I'm going to have to call Matt. Can you see that right there? That's what Matt sent me with his queen. That's how his sticker look.
Yeah. Yeah, he's learning all the stuff. That's why, I wish there was more people around. Matt has to drive from Indiana. I got Jim comes out of Texas. I got people from Kansas come over. And it's not just bees. I mean, there's a lot to the workings of a business that no one wants to show you. And just these simple things I'm telling you tonight. I mean, it's the means of make or break in a bee business.
Yeah. Well, how is the best way to market your bees just starting out? Say I'm just starting out. I've not sold a nuke one, and I plan on selling some nukes in the spring. What would you be your advice to a guy?
Well, that depends on what you want to do, really. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm greedy, but if you can make 1,000 nukes a year, I can sell them for you, but I charge you a percentage. Now, you can either sell them cheaper than everybody else to get people to buy them, but one thing is a lot of people come here, take classes from me, and you'll notice they'll say, I'm one of Fat Bee Man's students, and I refer. Matt, I've sent him, I don't know how many customers up there to buy bees.
Well,
he comes down here and he'll buy several hundred packages at a time.
Yeah. What's the best, say I'm going to come down to school for a week, what's the best time to do it for splits and queen rearing?
Well, we usually take our new students usually in February because we start them out learning, teaching them how to build, how to put stuff up, set yards up, how to maintain yards, how to work bees. The end of March all through April, we have to dump packages in, and you're not going to dump one package in. I'm going to assign you a row or 2 rows, and you'll do 25, 50 packages in an hour. So I'm going to teach you how to work efficiently, and get the job done. It's not, you don't go in a box and lollygag around. When we run these boxes or 5-frame boxes out there, you'll run a row and you'll pull 25 queens an hour. You ain't going to spend a half an hour to find 1 queen. Yeah. And I've made that statement on probably 10 of my videos. I teach my students to find that queen in 15 seconds and cage it. And the majority of them laugh about it. But the majority of them, within the first 2 to 3 weeks, they've got it down to less than a minute finding them. If they can't get it in a minute, I teach, well, don't feel bad. Move on to another hive.
Yeah. Do you charge? Can you come down for a week class? You charge? You got a commercial?
What I usually do is I charge by the year, or like I had a guy come down here about 5 weeks ago, I guess, and he wanted to take 2 days because he wanted to see splits and he wanted to see 5-frame nukes in operation. And he come down here and he paid me $100 a day. And he looked in the box. He says, "I cannot believe." He said, "What you say on the internet and what I'm seeing," he says, "I can't believe that." He said, "Most of them boxes only got 1, 2 frames in, and even some of the boxes had 4 frames." I said, "We don't put 5 frames into the boxes getting ready to be sold. 3 frames, you can move them frames around faster. You got 5 frames, you got to set 1 frame on the outside. That's your time killer. It takes you time. Move it out, move it back, and then go through it." So makes more sense to put 2, 3 frames in there. Because as soon as you've got a queen in there laying, patch like this, 6 inches in a box like this is more than enough. She's laying. You verified she's laying, you catch the queen, throw another celling, move on to another box. So, you know, I'm teaching people, if you want to save money, you've got to build your stuff. People say, you know, I can buy a little queen shipping cage, it's cheap. Well, 50 cents a cage adds up plus shipping. We make them, you know, great big 5-gallon bucket full in 10, 15 minutes with the drill press. It's all scrap wood.
Yeah, I've just made 40 after your video.
See, that there alone, if you was to buy the video even on that, the money you save, I mean, you could buy 100 videos. That's the point I'm trying to get across. I want you to be successful. That's my reward. I've got students all around when they tell me how they're doing it and what they're doing. I feel good about that. I've passed on something before I pass this world. And, you know, everybody's out there. You want to do a class here. I've got master beekeepers come up here and don't even know half the things that some of my students learn in 2 weeks. And I'm no master beekeeper. Don't get me wrong. I just make a living at it. I work in them.
Well, I was just thinking I had a week to spare, and I'd come down. What would be the best week to come down to maximize my time if I come down?
Probably mid-April would be good because we're shipping stuff out, catching queens, putting packages in. See, and when you see it in person and you see how to put a package in, triple your money in 2 to 3 weeks, selling it as a nuke, that's what people is not wanting to show you. Put them in a 5-frame box, put the sugar to them, and man, they build right out. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat.
Well, just from what I didn't know anything about beekeeping at this time last year, and I've got 12 hives, and I think the only thing I know is your way, because that's all I've watched and learned. I think I could turn it into 250 this year, not even trying.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no reason that you can't. If you follow just the things that I'm doing, I'm not trying to say anything as far as equipment or nothing. I'm just giving you some advice, and you can take it or you can leave it. I mean, the stuff is what I put out there is proven. It's what I do, and you know, people they're all the time running these new ideas by me, and you know, there's somebody that sent me a thing about these new cameras to watch your thing. They got two hives in their back of their house, and they want to buy those electronics to it. I said, keep beekeeping as simple as possible. And the people's wanting to do all this crap to these bees and putting all this stuff in.
Don, if we produce these nukes in the spring and we start and get going here, some of us got bit by this bug. If we do this and you sell them for a commission, do we have to bring them to Georgia?
It would be best if you brought them to Georgia, but if you let me know a week to 3 weeks in advance, I can find a buyer. I have people all the time wanting bees. Right now, I'm getting probably 10 to 25 people request wanting bees for next year. And I tell everybody, I don't care who's out there listening right now, and they'll tell you the same thing. I don't take no orders till February because my age, and then I don't know what the bees look like, and I just figured out I have to raise prices, and I'm raising prices on queens because everybody else is way up. Price of sugar's gone up, and packages has gone up, and everything else has gone up. I'm keeping my nukes the same, but I can find you a buyer to come to your area. I mean, that's not a problem.
That's good to know.
Now on nukes, I've been charging $25. So let's say you are not known out there and you're trying to sell them on Craigslist or something for 100 to 125, and you get one or two here. I sell them for 175. If they're your nukes, I pay you 125. If they're in large numbers, now I've got it on my webpage because a lot of people buy 25 nukes at a time. So if I'm selling the nukes for $150 because they're buying 25 at a time, then I give you 125. So I can sell them. But, you know, the problem I've had in the past, a lot of people get over anxious and say, I can get you 100, I can get you 200. And when it gets time, they always fall out. And that's one reason I don't like to book more than I know I can handle. So if you can produce them, Steve, I don't know if Steve will be on here. He's over west side of Georgia. He was on one of the chats. Now, he's one of my students, and he started out with four nukes and 10 packages, and he went up to 100. And I sold 20 of his back in, I think it was October. And then James, he's flipping B Company. Now, he brought me 20 nukes, and I sold those to another guy out of Texas. He come over from Texas. Now, I could have sold one of my students I got in Texas, but there's a lot of people when I drive over here, they think, you know, my bees are better than one of my students. But Jim is making money on the nukes. He's selling them over there. He buys them here for, you know, 175. He sells them in Texas for, I think it's 350. So
now, they don't keep the boxes, right? You keep your own boxes. We can't make boxes that fast.
Well, what I do is have my students, if they're bringing nukes here, bring them in a good box with a bottom board. I ain't worried about a feeder. I'll throw a feeder on there. I like to get them a minimum of 3 to 4 days prior to a customer picking them up. Because if they need feeding, you know, we have to put some feed to them. And if you bring 25 and the customer says, I only want 20 of those, I pay you on what he picks up. And you can either wait till I have another sale, because my philosophy is just like I teach my students. My customers go through the box, and I let them look at the queen. The queen is running in the box, and there's eggs she's laying. And if the box don't look right, we get a different box. We don't question why they don't want that box. We get them so they're happy. So that's one of the reasons we sell so darn many. But my queens, I've had 2 or 3 of my students. I give the people the name of one of my students, and I trust that they keep up with it. You know, sometimes they'll sell 20, 25 queens. I charge them $5 a piece. So, you know, if you can make queens and you want to sell queens, you know, that's another thing. I don't like to mark queens, and I definitely don't want to cut wings on queens.
Over winter nukes, I mean, in the fall, do they raise a premium in the spring because they're earlier? Can you get a premium out of them?
Nah, it's just an old wives' tale, I think. You know, it's just like people, I've got competitors that got ads in bee journals. They're advertising several different places. I haven't put an ad out since 1970. Right now, the market, you could put yellow jackets in a box and people buy them. I mean, there's such a shortage out there. And then, you know, you get your name out there in recognition. And people, if they do come to argue, you know, about prices, you know, well, I can buy them down the road, or I can buy them from this other fellow for $50 cheaper. You know, I just try to explain to them rationally, well, if that fella comes out and he's wearing full bee suit all taped up in that, and you're a new beekeeper, and this is the fella that's selling you bees, he can't work his own bees. That's why you see women at my bee yard. They got shorts, no veil, no glove. I run general stock, and if I get stock that gets a little mean, I get rid of those queens. I weed them out. But you know, there's no reason less. You couldn't make a minimum 5 splits a day, 7 days a week with what you got right now. I mean, I try to make 25 to 50 splits a day every day. I can't make them fast enough. Your whole secret is have a sugar supply, because you can't depend on a honey flow. You've got to put the sugar to them. The more sugar you put to them, the faster they build.
No better. Man, Let's see. Nobody else
Everybody's
got any
quiet
questions?
tonight. Here, I thought everybody was going to have a whole bunch of things to ask me tonight.
Well, there's others on here. I don't want to hog all the time. Let somebody else ask a question.
Don't be bashful.
Well, nobody's talking.
Maybe I spooked them. I don't know.
I'll pull
I
your
try
chair.
to,
I'll
try to
pull your
give you
chair.
all the information I possibly can, but if you don't ask me a question, I don't know what you know or what you don't know.
Yeah. Well, everything I know, learned from you, and it's worked really well for me, so I can't complain. I appreciate you.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Get better beekeepers out there. Yeah, Michael, I can see what you type if you don't have a mic or you don't have a camera, or if you're camera shy. It's just type what you want to know, and if I know the answer, I'll give you an answer. I don't have the answer to everything, but I could fake it, I guess.
Do you oxalic acid early in the spring, or you wait to just basically do it in the fall, Don?
Well, I mean, you got to kind of look at your own hive. If you think you got a problem, you can do it in the wintertime. I don't recommend doing any dribbling of oxalic acid, but my rule is if you got bees out days 50, my bees yesterday, it was around 43, 44 degrees, and I had some bees out flying. I wouldn't oxalic acid at that temperature. Their bees are flying, but they're probably still in a cluster. But if you're at 50, 55 degrees, you could do it. I wouldn't see that you would have to do oxalic acid when it's that cold out there. Because if you've done your last oxalic acid even in October, you should be pretty good. Mites and beetles, they're on the downcline that time of the year.
Yeah. Well, I treated mine in the fall, but I just wanted in the spring. I was thinking about maybe just fogging them until maybe July or August before I done any oxalic.
Well, I would do it a little bit earlier than that. I would try, I've watched the red maples, and when the red maples start to bloom, I'll have some new students that I usually put them on the vapor of the fogger at first and get them used to that. So I'll do a fogging probably last in February, then I might do it the middle of March. And by then I've got enough students or old students coming back. We'll start doing the oxalic acid. The oxalic acid, you've got to keep an eye on students because timing is very important. That thing will oxidize and vaporize in 20 to 30 seconds. And if you leave it in a little too long, these are baby frames. We don't do that, but on the bottom of a frame, you'll see a little burnt spot here. That vaporizer gets that hot. So if you got a burr comb hanging down here and you're using that vaporizer, it could catch fire. I had a student that bought one about 3 years ago, and for some reason he had a hive that got hot on him. I don't know if it swarmed and they didn't make a good queen, but they started chewing him up. And so he had his vaporizer hooked up and ran to the house and went back in about 4 or 5 minutes, and he had wax starting to come down in there, and it basically could catch fire. So if you have a problem like that, I would suggest I keep my battery and my leads in a wheelbarrow. I would go by and unhook one lead, break that circuit, and then go to the house. But usually when bees get aggressive like that, there's something underlining causing it.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't have any problem with. All my bees are pretty tame.
Well, here's the thing too on calm bees. I've had people call me up, and a lot of times said, "This hive I work with no smoke, no veil," and I went out there one day and they started eating me up. What do you think's the problem? Well, if you look under the hive, sometimes you have these little lizards under there, or if you look at the front of the hive, you see some scratch marks on there. You've got a skunk or a possum or coon out there, and they're basically scraping the hive, and the bees come out, so they're basically having dinner. So it gets the hive more aggressive. They're on the alert. One thing you could do is, on all your hives, keep your entrance reduced in the summer, but you've got to keep an eye on them because if you don't have enough circulation or your supers drilled for more ventilation, they can overheat. You got a question tonight, Jimmy? You tried to get on a couple times, but you need to get in there and ask those questions.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I got all my supers drilled and everything like you've been showing me for the
Yeah.
ventilation.
Where do you live at?
West Virginia.
You should be pulling those supers off, I would think.
Oh, they're off.
Oh, okay. What do you do with the supers? Are you melting them down or are you storing them?
Melting them down like you said.
Yeah, you're smart. I mean, for me, it's hard to convince a lot of people. They want to think that old comb is like gold. That's what old beekeepers have thought. But I've done videos and proved, and you can prove it to yourself. Put a new sheet of wax in there or a starter strip, and I'll guarantee you go back in 3 to 4 days, and every time you'll find a queen on that new foundation. They work that new foundation a lot more than they work that drawed stuff. And I've done a study years ago where, because of so many people believe that saving comb from 1 year when they extract the honey, saving it, and putting it in a storage and then using it again because the bees don't have to draw it. Well, I took several hives. I think there was 40 of them in that group, and 20 of them was old comb and 20 of them was brand new foundation. The new foundation, they made more honey and had less problems. When you store that comb, you're either going to put it on paramoth or you're going to stagger it, and if you get rodents in there and they happen to get in there and chew the wax up and pee inside that super net, it's hard to keep bees in there. So that's why I try to give different answers for different situations. And if you sit in front of your hive and on a day, midday, go out there and just watch. Every so often, if you got solid bottom boards, which that's what I run. I don't run screen bottom boards. But sit there, you will see it looks like dandruff coming out of the front of that hive. Every so often, you'll see a pollen come blowing out like dust coming out. The bees are making wax platelets all the time. And if they don't use them, they discard them and they blow them out the front of the hive. So it makes more sense to take old comb, clean it up, because old comb is contaminated from stuff they picked up, or it could be stretched, or it could be drone comb, or they're not going to make worker cells out of it. Once a cell gets stretched, that's where people don't understand why their bees is leaving. When the cell gets stretched, the queen has two options. She's either going to put a drone in there or they're going to put honey in there, because she's not going to lay a worker cell in there. So the more drones you get, the population of drones gets up, great for making queens, but they eat a lot of your resources. So that's another reason I try to tell people to get it out of there.
Well, I want to switch to small cell next year if I can do it.
Well, like I say, I'm not trying to sell you nothing, but I found that, first of all, on small cell, the bee is a lot smaller, so you never have to treat for trachea mites. It's impossible for the bee to get trachea mites. The second, if you listen just to what these college professors keep preaching, put drone comb in and drone trap your mites. So you've got a frame or two in there of nothing but drones, and they're telling you the mites prefer this larger cell. I didn't go to college. Small cell, they want a large cell. So if you're using mostly small cell, you cut the odds down, so less treatment. So, I mean, the stuff I'm putting out there is working. 7 years ago, if you would tell a lot of people, put your bees from a 10 frame to a 5 frame box in Nebraska, Vermont, Connecticut, and people laugh at you. They say, they ain't going to make it. Why do you think Michael Palmer and Michael Bush and Kirk Webster is all going to 5 frame nukes? He'd lost survivability. It's the common sense that I've been out here preaching about. Common sense beekeeping.
I got all of mine in 5 frames.
Now, small cell bees, Don, is that all genetics? The queen will lay all small cell bees?
Well, genetics comes into it, but it's like the foundation of your house. You can't build a bigger house than the foundation it's sitting on. So If you got a large cell or stretched out cell, the queen has to use what's there. If you're putting small cell in there, and that queen and the previous queen or the daughters have come off a small cell, they're basically going to be a smaller queen. Now, probably Les could probably answer that. He's bought queens from other people, and he's bought queens from me. And first thing people say, are these queens bred? Because my queens, when they're shipped out, they're small. Because they're a small queen. They're small cell queens.
Well, what I
But they
wonder
lay
about,
good.
if you put small cell starter strips in there, I mean, they'll lay their own cell size, right?
Right. But the foundation, see, this is one of the examples that I try to use right here. All right, you got 2 frames. These are just the baby nukes, but basically it's the same thing as on a full-size hive. Now, if you're going to make money in the springtime, the queen has to wait for this area. See right here? She has to wait for this to get drawn down. But this is what you call the window of opportunity. You see that frame? That's got wax all the way down. This has got deep embossings in it. That queen, you've probably seen it if you look close in your hive. She will lay on a new sheet of wax. She'll lay that egg in that where it's embossed. It's not drawn out yet, but the bees will draw it out as that larva starts to develop. So the full sheet versus that starter sheet is a matter of sometimes putting you 2 to 3 weeks ahead of everything else. Because on a starter strip, if there's no honey coming in and you're not feeding and you don't have enough bees in there to draw wax or you don't have good temperature, she has to wait. Here, it's ready to go. So that's why I like to explain the different ways and the alternatives. That help you out?
Yeah, that's what basically I've been putting mostly starter strip in mine.
Starter strips work good. Sometimes you just starter strips. Most people don't understand it, but if you put a starter strip or a blank frame between 2 frames that's already drawn out, the full width, they will draw good comb most of the time. If your spacing of the frames is correct, if you've got too wide a spacing. That's why I frown on people that have a 10-frame hive that put 9 frames in it, or an 8-frame hive and they put 7 in there. Because the spacing is too wide, the bees end up putting an extra row of comb in there, or burr comb, and when you open the hive up, most of the bees ain't going to hide. But when the sun hits that queen, she ducks for shade. She don't want to be in the sun at all. So if she's between that burr comb or that extra comb, you roll your queen up. And I sell more queens to people that listen to these people out there with all these great ideas. Now, a hive, if you're running a 10-frame hive, if you're 2 deeps high, now you can go to 9 frames. Now on my 8 frames, if I'm double deep and I got a super on top, I have put 7 in. And in cases, I have put 6. I mean, the bees really make a wide comb. It's good for, extracting, but the only problem I have with 6 frames in an 8-frame box is the frame itself is too heavy, and you can see my wrists, they're swelled up. I got arthritis. So it's a weight problem. But a young guy, it's good. That brings up one more thing. I was actually, instead of doing this mini nuke, I was going to explain more. I did honey on the cheap on one of my videos, and I was going to bring up several different things and talk about the plane. I don't know if people know what a honey plane is. It's a big, heavy deal that you pull it across your frame, and it pulls off a sheet of wax, and it's supposed to be the rage, everything else. And there's people that use a blower. There's a lot of different things with that. When I done that video, it was a 3 or 4 minute video, but I covered most of the things you can use to uncap honey cheaply, efficiently. And I was going to do one on that honey plane. That is a total waste of money. I used it one time.
I just did what you showed on that bucket, and I just scraped the honey out. That's what I did this year. But tell me something. Is there an advantage to extract as far as having the bees do they save time by having that cell already drawn out the next time you put that super back on?
If there's a honey flow and it's new wax that year, I would say it might put a little bit of advantage to it. But right now, wax that has no chemical in it, I showed some, I guess it was 2 or 3 weeks, some cakes of wax here.
Yeah.
Good clean wax with no chemical is $20 and $25 a pound. So, I mean, it's something, to think about. It's something to do.
Don, I noticed on some of my honey frames that the bees will swell the bottom out, and it makes it real difficult about getting them framed because you try to pull that bell up through there. Am I doing something wrong causing them to do that?
You got a bell? You mean the comb is thin at the top and it's wider at the bottom?
Yeah, it's pretty straight all the way down. It gets right to the bell, and they make a big bulge out the bottom on the bottom of the frames.
It sounds like your wax got hot and it started to sink down on you. Was it hot or something that time when it did that?
No, just a few of them do that, and like I say, you try to pull that up there with the right spacing, and it'll just tear everything up. You know what I mean? You got honey everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
they do it on they not do it on the honey supers now. This is on the deeps down in the brood box where they put honey.
The only time I've seen problems with that is a lot of times real thin surplus wax is so thin it don't have enough backbone to it. That's why when students come over here and they feel the wax, my students, I'll sell them a small percentage of wax. And if you pick up one of my sheets of wax, I should have brought some up, you can see it. It feels like plastic, but it's 100% beeswax. And you see on the rating of wax on what the bee supply houses do, it's 7 to 8 or 8.5 sheets to the pound on deep. Well, I'm making my deeps, they're running 4 to 6 sheets to the pound. So they're basically twice as thick. So they basically, when you feel them and stand them up or even put them in a hive on a hot day, they don't buckle. This year, we had such a heat problem and so much honey coming in. Actually, the full sheets worked good in the spring, and we went to 2-inch strips from about mid-May on because there was so much honey coming in that it was stretching out or was falling over. And what we found that we put the starter strip in there, the bees actually built it wider and stronger at the top, and it didn't buckle. And we accumulated more wax.
If I want to cull out old frames, Don, which I got quite a few of them, is there a certain time to save time to do that? I mean, the spring or the fall, is it critical, or just do it whenever you can get to it?
Well, one way to do it is work your frames if they got brood into nukes, and then always keep working them to the outside. But right now, your cluster should be small. So you're either going to have a frame that you're going to melt down that's going to have mostly honey in it. I usually use some 5-frame boxes with a solid bottom, and I'll set some frames out on a warm day and let them just rob it out. Once they clean it out, then I scrape it out and cut it out. Now, on a deep frame, I've got a 20-quart kettle that I use. I don't melt more than 4 frames at a time, because if they got a lot of old cocoons in there, you go any more than 4 frames, there's too much volume, and you can't press it through your strainer. See, I got a big strainer that used to, it's like house green with reinforcing in it to strain spaghetti and stuff. Well, I use my hive tool, and I press it down and flip it over a few times, and it's basically dry. But if you go more than 4 frames, the volume is too much, and you never get the amount of honey out.
Yeah, I've seen your videos on how you do all that. I just didn't know if it's the best time to work your old wax out in the fall or the spring, to save time. Some things can mess your timing up, and you got experience.
You got to do a lot of things when you got time.
Yeah.
And
okay.
now is the time that we try to do our saw work and our saw lumber up and build boxes. I try to build a few boxes almost every day, build a few lids. I mean, if you just keep plugging at it, you'll slowly get accumulated some stuff up. But old comb, sometimes in the springtime or in the fall, you're going to have to sacrifice some old brood, or you're going to sacrifice some honey, one way or the other. But your objective is to get at least 2 frames every 6 months in a hive of new wax. If you can rotate that much out, you're doing pretty good.
Okay.
I've had people come up here and say there's nothing wrong with my comb. It's been in here for 15 years working fine. 3 to 4 years, it starts getting dark. It accumulates a lot of impurities from what the bees pick up. So that little bit by changing out wax makes a difference. And then small cell makes a difference. No screen bottom boards, no metal in the lid. Each little step is one more thing that helps with your beekeeping.
If you use a starter strip, will that naturally give you small cells, or does that take time?
Well, sometimes, if you bought large cell bees from somebody who's been on large cell, and a lot of times you get a bunch of burr combs, or it just looks like the bees had a nut case or was on a drunk, and the things are not uniform.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. You can lead the bees to a certain point, but I think it takes a little time. Once you get enough small cell bees out there, they pretty much will draw.
Okay.
But now, like trees and houses where I've took comb out, a lot of times it's on the smaller side. It's between 4.9 and 5.1. And it's pretty straight. I mean, there's no, they didn't buy no comb, they didn't buy nothing. I mean, they just found a house and start making comb. A lot of it could be genetics. I'm not real strong on genetics. I tinker around with the genetics as far as I know when I got good queens, when I got aggressive ones, and I kind of weed that stuff out. But the high-tech stuff of it, the alleys, what they call the X's and the Y's and the chromosomes, I didn't go to college, so I'm just a farm boy. It's just trial and error.
One thing I did notice is I bought a bunch of foundation from one of the bee companies long before I knew you. And I used some of that in some of my hives earlier. And this year I used some starter strips, and I did scrape some honey like you did with that spoon. I like that method pretty good, especially if you're raising bees and you're not going to expect a whole lot. And I noticed when I scraped it off, where they naturally drawed that out, the sheet that was left was a lot thicker than that what you buy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The stuff that you get in the thing, it'll fold over or it collapses on you.
You talked about when red maples bloom. I've never seen a maple tree bloom. Is that when the shells, they swell up and the shells you see fall on the ground? Is that when they're blooming?
That sounds like poplars, this little shell you're talking about. Red maples, you should have some up there.
Yeah, we got
you
some.
You can see when you're driving down the street in February, late January, you'll see a red glow to the tree. You can look out in the woods. Everything is dead looking, and you'll see a glow of red on the tree.
Yeah.
That's red maples blooming.
Okay, I didn't know it was bloom. Yeah, I can see them swell. They swell up and they turn red.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good enough. Seemed like you base a lot on them maple trees.
Well, it gives me, see, it's like when you're making queens. You got to have pollen to make queens. And then if you're going to make queens, the next thing you got to have is your drones. So you can make all the queens you want. If you ain't got drones to get made, you're not doing nothing. So I watch for the blooms. When I start seeing pollen coming in, especially when pine trees bloom, that's basically, you could take a new beekeeper out there. You can't hardly make a mistake because there's so much pollen coming in. They're getting so much of it coming in. You can make good queens without even trying.
You get lots of drones, and you've got pollen coming in, and you get all set early in the spring, and then if you have a cold snap, it can mess you up, right?
Right. Well, it'll mess you up to the point that if you put too much open brood in a box, that's why I've done videos on, if you've got a queen cell, you could put a frame of honey in there and shake enough bees from one frame or two frames in there. They're going to get up around that queen cell. They're going to keep it warm. You're not going to lose honey, but if you've got too much open brood in there and you don't have enough bees, they cluster, and that's what you have. The next day when it's cold, they're bringing out all these white larvae.
But if
everybody don't make splits the same.
If it turns 40 degrees and she wants to fly out and get mated, it's not going to work, right?
No, she ain't going to fly out at 40 degrees.
Yeah, that's what I think.
At 40 degrees, you're not going to have queens flying out. Usually, I would say 58, 60 degrees would be the lowest. I wouldn't even want to work hives. If you're raising queens and making cells, I wouldn't want to go in there and piddle around at 55.
We get some of this erratic weather. And last spring, I fed some of my bees early. Even in February, we had nice weather, and everything got going. And, of course, I didn't do that quite that early. But then all of a sudden, things can look good. You can have drone cells and everything. then all of a sudden, boom, we can turn bad weather. And so,
Yeah.
that's something to watch, I guess.
That is the whole thing about raising queens. I mean, you try to do everything you can, but you can't control nature. Sometimes it throws a monkey wrench in. You got to work with it.
Yeah.
Does anybody else got any questions? It's almost 9 o'clock, so if you got a question, jump on in there because I'm going to get out of here. I'm tired. I was lucky enough to get on here tonight. Jeff, he's had problems. He's in the hospital right now. I came out 2 weeks ago. I think it was almost 2 weeks ago. And I didn't turn my garage light on, and I got 3 steps from my house down in my garage, and I go out the back door. Well, I missed the bottom step, and I fell flat on my face. I was going out hunting, so I think I cracked a rib, but I'm still sore, but I'm still kicking. So that's another thing I learned a lesson, turn the lights on. It's going out. But unless something happens, I'm going to try to get in here. If I get one of my students to set up another type of chat where we get more people in, it's hard for me to tell how many people come in and out of here tonight. I think we had 7 or 8 people at one time. But that was the whole reason to get this other chat room, to give everybody an opportunity to get in and to ask a question, to kind of be a better beekeeper. Well, if nobody else has got any questions, I'm going to head out, and this old man's going to head to bed. I appreciate everybody showing
away
up.
with the other chat room?
Do what?
Are you doing away with the other chat room?
Well, I didn't pay for that. Jeff, he contacted me, and he volunteered to pay for it. That's a pay-per-view type chat. And at first it was a little rough, but then he said he had quite a few people. I don't know how to set the thing up. I tried to look at it and see it today, but as far as I could see, it's like $18 a month. He footed that bill. That was one of the reasons he was going to charge a small fee to cover that. And then he wanted to try to get a little extra. It probably figured out to about $3 a head that I was going to get for an hour of my time, which basically is nothing because, I do a private class here, a day. I get $100 a day. If I do 2 students, I can make more than that. But I'm trying to take people, like each one of you and make a success story there. You got the potential and you got the boxes, you might as well put it to work.
Well, Don, I appreciate everything you do for us because it sure makes life easier.
Thank you, Don.
I'm going to head out. Everybody have a good night.
You too, Don. Thank you.
You take care now.
Appreciate it.
Take care, gentlemen.
You too.
I have a question. You still there?
I'm here, but Don's not.
No, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I always notice every time I see you in the chat, you have all this stuff behind you. And I was just always curious about that. It's like you're in your garage or something?
No, this is my office. My wife and everybody's got everything stuffed full of my office. I need to clean it up back there.
You got one of my wife's office, same way. Everything she has stuff piled all over. Like
I got boxes and bows and arrows and I don't know, a little bit of everything behind me there.
It's just funny because I always see it and it's like, what is all that stuff he has behind him? Like you're in the middle of the garage or something. That's what it looks like.
No, there's a big couch back there, and I got stuff stacked all over the place. I thought about almost cleaned it out today, and I got out there pilling around with the bees and didn't.
You wouldn't even know the couch is there, except when you mentioned it, I saw the arm right there.
Yeah, there's a couch back there. Yeah. Well, I kind of like these chats better than I do the others personally. How about you?
I'm new, and I never did the Google Hangouts, and then the other ones started. And I think personally, the way Jeff brought it on rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, for charging.
Yeah.
I think what they should have did was, this would have made more sense, because if you had said, hey, the chats are free, and if you want to ask personalized questions, you can pay a fee, and maybe that would have been a better method versus, I don't know, you understand a man's trying to make money. He's in the business, but the same token, too, is, you know what? I looked into those chat rooms because I was looking at that chat room to use for a church thing, and there was no reason to go to a 100-room chat room. They could have stuck with the 30-room chat room, which was a lot cheaper. It was like $180 for the year, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Versus the other one, it was a big jump. But he wanted the ability to be able to record YouTube videos and all that so he could put them on YouTube and all this stuff. If he had just stayed at the $30 one and left it just like this is here, it would have been fine.
Yeah,
Personally, honestly, I don't like Jeff as a moderator. I don't think he's that good. I think he's more annoying myself, honestly, and I'm just being frank about it. You know, he says too much and interjects too much instead of just, you know, moderators should just be there to help out and not be seen.
Hey, Will, I'm trying to figure out how to get you on here. Les is calling me. We talk a lot. We can get on there and chat a little bit if you want.
I don't know too much.
You on Google Plus?
Google Hangout.
Oh, there you are.
Well, I keep my video off because the kids come running in and out, and
Yeah.
we do foster kids, so they're not allowed to be on TV and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
So I always keep the video and I always keep the audio off because, you know, you never know when the kids are coming in and they're screaming and yelling and, you know, all that. So
There's Les. And we never left, Les.
I can tell you guys still here.
Yeah. Yeah, we was talking about the chat room. He wanted to know what all this junk was behind me. I said I don't clean my office out.
Hey, you guys, you're liable to be on YouTube.
You reckon?
I wouldn't doubt it.
no, I hope not.
I hope not either.
Well, how about this? I don't consent to being on YouTube, so don't put it on there. How's that?
I'm trying to get how to friend you where we could just start our own chat and be away from this, the one Fat B-Man had.
Yeah.
Do you know how to do that, Les?
What, start your own chat?
Yeah, to invite Will into our chat.
Oh, yeah. First, you're going to have to put him on Google Friends. We ought to get out of this room, really.
Yeah, we ought to. Google Friends.
Will, are you, can you paste up there? I don't know how to befriend you.
I don't know. I've never used this. I'm on the iPad.
You're on the iPad.
Oh, it's showing me how do I get out of this?
What is your username?
Waldor, Waldor.
Can you paste it? Can you paste it to the
All
side
right,
there?
I think I got it here. Hold on a second.